Now, of all the questions that people have ever asked me about what's written in the Bible, of all the moral, theological questions, the philosophical questions, the deep thoughts that people have posed to me, perhaps the one that I've received the most is that age-old, world-changing, thought-provoking, deep-thinking question: where did Cain get his wife? I mean, if we can answer this question, we can solve world hunger, end war, provide affordable housing and health care for everybody. Hold on, not so fast. Let's talk about it. I'm Methodist Dave. I'm a professional theologian and teacher of the Bible. The fit for today is the crucifixion from a stained glass window. This is the only shirt of its kind in existence because I printed it myself from a photograph I took in Washington, D.C. Genesis chapter 4. We have Adam and Eve have been evicted from the garden previously. They're now going out into the world and they're living, and they have children. The chapter tells us about the brothers being born. The first one is Cain. Then they have another one, Abel. Cain is a farmer and Abel is a shepherd. We're introduced to an incident where one day both of them are offering a sacrifice to God, and Cain brings the fruit of the ground and offers it as a sacrifice, and Abel brings the first of his flocks, the firstborn, and the fat of his flock, and they offer these sacrifices. We read that God takes notice or approves of Abel's offering, but God does not approve of Cain's offering. Why is that? I can tell you. I don't know. I've heard a lot of explanations for it, a lot of opinions. One opinion is that because Cain brings a bloodless offering, or Cain brings fruit of the cursed ground. I'm not sure that either of those is adequate. I do recall watching a long time ago John Huston's epic, The Bible, where it covers this in that section there, and it is completely director's license. Cain is holding back some of the sacrifice. Instead of offering everything, he holds back. And he doesn't give the best. He's not giving the first fruits of his sacrifice. So perhaps the attitude with which Cain was offering his sacrifice was different than the attitude that Abel was offering his sacrifice. Well, God speaks directly to Cain to give him a warning and says, Cain, look, be careful. If you do what's right, everything's going to be fine. God's not condemning him. God is trying to give him a warning, give him a chance. If you do what's right, if you live justly and do what's right, do what you're supposed to do, I'm going to be fine with you. But if not, be careful. Sin is crouching at your door, and it desires to trap you. And that's exactly what happens. I can just imagine that Cain can't stop thinking about this sacrifice. He's looking at his brother, and if you've ever had a brother, maybe I didn't have sisters, but maybe it's the same way with sisters. Time to time, you're going to fight with each other. And my brother and I have gotten into some serious fights. And the only thing that really broke up these serious fights was we had a third brother, and the two of us teamed up to torment him. That was more fun than fighting with each other. But brothers fight, and brothers become jealous of one another. They're competing. Even though there's no real sense of competition, there is a sense of competition. And he's just sitting there looking at his brother, and it just gets under his skin, and he starts thinking about it day in, day out. God accepted your offering. What makes you so special? And then in the field, Cain strikes down and kills his brother. This assault was not prompted by peer pressure. There was no systemic oppression, no class warfare, no video games, no rock music, played backwards, of course. Just basic envy. And he couldn't let it go. Murder never or rarely happens spontaneously. It just festers in the heart. And this might not have been a planned murder either. Perhaps Cain was just ragging on his brother a little bit, and he just had enough and grabbed a rock and hit him with it and killed him. Well, we draw attention to the incident by God. God says, where's your brother? Where's your brother? Now, like Adam, who shifts the blame, Cain tries to ignore it. He says, what brother? Am I his keeper? Am I his shepherd? Am I supposed to be looking after my brother? The answer to that question is yes. Thousands of years later, we are our brother's keeper. And we do have a responsibility to look after one another. Well, God says the ground itself cries out. Abel's blood cries out from the ground for justice. And God could have struck down Cain right then and there. But God puts Cain under a curse, and he no longer gets to stay in one place. He's going to be a vagabond, a wanderer. He's going to have to work for everything. The ground will not readily yield its fruit to him. And he's got to struggle. And he's not going to be allowed to live with his family anymore. Well, I can't live like that. He says, it's too much. Somebody's going to find me and kill me. So God says, I will place on you a mark that will protect you. That mark was not skin color. Like some people will say, oh, that's the mark of Cain. It wasn't his skin color, and it wasn't a curse put on his descendants. It was a mark that was placed on Cain to protect him. See, this is really important to see this in this story here from the Bible. God is always merciful and gives him a chance, which is why I believe it was probably a heat of the moment thing. This would be manslaughter, not murder. God gives Cain a chance. God wants to give us a chance to get right with him. So is willing to forgive and overlook a lot of bad things that we do. Oh, that question that you asked, that world-shattering, plague-ending, calm-inducing question, where did Cain get his wife? Well, let's just look at a couple possibilities. First off, that God created other people, not just Adam and Eve. That's a possibility, that there were others. Secondly, God created spouses specifically for Cain and Abel, like he did for Adam. That's a possibility. I'm a firm believer in Occam's razor. The simplest answer is usually the correct one. And most likely, at that time, people married their siblings and had children with them. We don't do that now because we know it's not genetically healthy. But there have been cultures around this world where marrying a close relative was not so weird or unusual. As a matter of fact, it was considered normal. For instance, the children of Pharaoh would marry their sisters and brothers, keep that royal blood together, keep that family together. And across Europe, all the leaders of the European countries were related to each other. During the First World War, the King of England, the Kaiser of Germany, and the Tsar of Russia were all cousins, first cousins. They all shared the same grandmother, Victoria. And everybody else in Europe was related through Victoria. She had a whole bunch of kids, and everybody's marrying everybody else. And the Habsburg blood is mixed in, and people have been intermarrying for generations. And there's a lot of problems that posed then. But if your DNA reproduced perfectly every time, and it hasn't been contaminated or allowed to thin out that much, then it was probably genetically safe for people to marry their siblings. Remember, Abraham was married to his half-sister, Sarah. They shared the same father. So maybe that should solve your problems, help you sleep at night, put an end to your struggles. Now that you know the answer to that question, or maybe you need to keep asking questions. Thank you for joining me. Remember, if you have any questions, further studies on this, or you want to know more about the subjects I talk about, you can email me at methodistdave@gmail.com. Thank you, and you have a great day.